once you kind of get used to being able to handle this. And plus, there's not a lot of manual Tacomas out there. I will say, hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be reviewing a 2022 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro with a 6-speed manual transmission. First and foremost, so a huge shout out and thank you to the Brent Brown Toyota here in Orem for giving me some time with this TRD Pro. Check out the inventory in the description down below. And then on a side note, I just released my car buying course, so if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to that in the description down below as well. Let's get into the video. So under the hood, we have a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 that goes through a 6-speed manual transmission. Fuel economy is 17 around town and then 20 on the highway, with power outputs being 278 horsepower and then 265 pound-feet of torque. And I love how the green kind of makes like the engine bay like illuminate because it's so bright and reflective. Let's go over the front end of the TRD Pro. So this one's finished in the all-new color for the TRD Pro, which is electric lime, and I'm a huge fan. You guys know I like bright colors like this. Now, we have our TRD Pro sticker here. Notice we got the hood scoop there in the center, definitely adds to the aggression. We've got the full LED lights here. Notice with the accent lights around them, and then you have the Pro just down below. We've got the rigid fog lights. We have the old school Toyota logo, which looks fantastic. Camera there, just up above it, and then a sensor down below. And overall, from a front end perspective, again, finishing in this bright green looks really cool. I recently reviewed a black one, also here at Brent Brown. Let me know if you guys like that one more or this from a color perspective. And then you guys can see we've got the TRD skid plate. So that's part of the TRD Pro, is you have the skid plates underneath to protect with the truck. And there's the front end. So coming around the side here, we've got 16-inch wheels. Wrapped around that, we have 265mm tires. We've got the TRD specific wheels. I think they look fantastic with the red accenting, and they just have that cool off-roader type appearance. Now, we have quite a bit happening from a shock and suspension standpoint. So we have the TRD tuned Fox 2.5 internal bypass shocks with rear remote reservoirs. So basically what that means is we have a super advanced shock system, has been tuned by TRD specific for the Tacoma TRD Pro so that the system works seamlessly with the truck. And I mean, it looks cool in red. You guys can see we've got the splash guard off to the side, and then we'll pop over here to the rear so you guys can see the shock setup, and then the tire and wheel setup here in the rear. And also notice the truck still does utilize leaf springs. We've got the darkened exhaust tip, and you guys will love the sound of the exhaust. Notice TRD Pro is now stamped there onto the side of the bed, and then taking a full step back. And then the last thing I want to mention here on the shocks is this is one of the most advanced shock systems on a mid-sized pickup truck as of right now. So here's our key fob. You guys can see the Toyota logo there on the back. We have our unlock and then our lock. And so let's talk about the bed area. So we have a payload capacity of 945 pounds, which I feel like payload's more important than towing with a TRD Pro because most people are going to use this for off-roading and overlanding. And so you need to know how much stuff you can put on the truck, right? And all that fun stuff. Notice we do have the composite bed, which is a thing that Toyota does with a lot of their trucks, which I'm a huge fan of. And this has a protective mat on top of the composite bed, which is like double protection. You guys can see here with the outlet here and the bed as well, and you know, just like a mid-sized truck, pretty practical. Now, one thing to note, the tailgates on the Tacomas are pretty heavy. You have to muscle it up quite a bit. Now let's finish things up here with the rear. So notice all the badges here are all blacked out. We do have the kick step, and notice it tells you where to push, which is kind of funny. You've got the receiver hitch just down below, and then we do have a spare tire here, so you can see that whole setup, and then everything else underneath. And well, that's everything for the exterior here of the TRD Pro. Also, I love the contrast with the fender flares against the green. I think that looks really good. So here's the door panel in the rear. You guys can see the padding all down below with a little window control off to the side. And then here are the seats. The benefit of the design of these seats and material use is they're very easy to clean off, and they look cool, frankly. Got the red contrasted stitching. Got this little latch right here you can pull up. You notice you got some storage space. I love how little hooks, again, are green. Kind of a cool thing. And then popping in, well, I just got out of bed, guys, so that's why we got the old socks and sandals. Anyways, got some cup holder action happening there, and you know, space back here is pretty good. And yeah, let's head to the front. Now here's the door panel at the front. You guys can see the padding all down below with all of our window controls here. Notice the front two are automatic. You've got the mirror adjustment. The mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. And then here's the front seat. Notice the headrest says TRD Pro. Again, you've got the red stitching, and then look at the material use all down the center. And then you got your power adjustments here on the side of the seat. We've got the 3-pedal layout because again, it's a manual transmission. We've got this to turn on the outlet. You've got the clutch start cancel function on it. We've got our stability control, that's for the camera view. And, well, let's pop in. That was a very long startup just to tell us that we're low on fuel. But anyways, you can see here with the steering wheel, again, the material use is very functional. So it's kind of smoother here at the top and at the bottom. You're not going to grab as often, but here we're going to grab perforated so you get a better grip on the steering wheel. We've got all of our practical controls for like the cruise control here on this side. And then the other side is mostly like voice command controls, volume controls, all that normal stuff. So think like safety stuff on one side and then like, you know, voice stuff on the other side, basically. Anyways, turn signal light stock, we got our windshield wiper stock, and there you go. Now here's the center gauge cluster. It's mostly analog gauges, and then here in the center you can scroll through a few different menus. Now the most important one is not our average fuel economy. If we actually go out to a couple of the other menus, you guys can see stuff for like the safety tech, for example, and then this menu is really important. So this is for like the off-road status. So again, being a TRD Pro, you're probably gonna take it off-road. So there's that menu to look at if you do. Now I'll show you guys how to get into reverse a little bit later, but here's our backup camera. You've got the trajectory lines that do turn with the steering wheel, and popping it back into neutral. Let's go over the rest of the camera system. So you guys can see the front camera, also got the bird's eye view, side cameras. And so yeah, everything's pretty much covered from a camera perspective. The front camera is gonna be the most important for off-road use, typically. And then you guys can see here with the infotainment system, response time with the different buttons is good, and buttons on the side as well. So I guess buttons on the screen, buttons on the side, all of that's solid. I don't think this has navigation, but we'll see just in case. Oh, there we go, we do have navigation. Look at that, pretty cool. There you go. So we've got our analog controls here for the heated seats. Down below, climate controls does have dual zone climate. We have our 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel high, and then 4-wheel low for the drive line. Got the little defroster. Blind spot monitoring. This is where the ECT power button is for the automatic, since this manual doesn't have that parking sensor. It does have a power sliding window, which is great. Definitely a nice bit of practicality. And then like our charging ports, wireless phone charger down below, and we have the shifter for the 6-speed manual. So to get into reverse, push it all the way over and up. That is reverse, as you can see, pops up the backup camera. And then for the rest of the gears, pretty normal. It's notchy for a truck. Now it does have a taller shifter. That's kind of like a hallmark of trucks and SUVs from a shifter perspective. And the throws are a little bit on the longer side, which some of you guys might not understand that if you come from like a sports car background, but what I've noticed with trucks and SUVs and having a kind of like longer throw is, especially if with off-road use, basically, you can really make sure like, okay, am I really gonna wanna commit to going into that gear? And because there's such a far distance, you're not gonna accidentally put it into another gear and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I definitely see that practical application, and it looks cool. Look at like the red accenting on it, pretty nice. A couple cup holders, got our parking brake, and then you can see here with the center console storage, and then leg glove box. Notice the padding there on the dash, and then finishing things here up to the top, we do have a sunroof, and then you guys can see we've got more stuff. So we have a locker here that comes with the TRD Pro, controls for the sunroof, and then our traction to turn everything off. And then you can see this. Notice this doesn't have like all the modes that the automatic has, because again, it's a manual transmission, so you're gonna be doing a lot more stuff yourself versus the truck doing it for you, if that makes sense. But yeah. So here's our window sticker on this Tacoma TRD Pro. Feel free to freeze the frame if you want to read all of the standard equipment, which is pretty much all the equipment on this truck, because everything comes standard with the TRD Pro, and it's the optional equipment. And then here's the total MSRP, $48,138. And let's see how she drives. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. There's your visibility of the hood. It looks so cool with the scoop and the TRD Pro sticker and everything. Both the mirrors, which do have blind spot monitoring, and then throughout the rest of the rear. And brake down, first gear, let's set off. So we are starting off here in the TRD Pro, and you know, in normal Ben Hardy review fashion, we're of course in lots of traffic, which should be funny with the, not funny, but should be fun with the manual transmission. But let's actually set off here in the TRD Pro. First off, definitely interesting in terms of the feel with the clutch, the transmission, all that. And I actually am probably a little bit too close for how tall I am. Yeah, that should be a little bit better. Kind of like the clutch, everything kind of felt weird. I got long legs, people. But yeah, so from a suspension standpoint, I can't tell a difference. So typically manual transmissions weigh a little bit less than automatics. So right, that might change things a little bit with the vehicle, but I don't really feel a difference from a ride quality standpoint. It feels like it rides just as smooth as the regular TRD Pro, and the dampening on the TRD Pro is great. I will say, from driving a Trail Edition Tacoma off-road, I haven't taken the TRD Pro off-road, but truck's super capable. And the other thing that's great about the truck is it's really good at high-speed dampening. And again, that's a Trail Edition that doesn't have shocks that are as good as the TRD Pro, so just understand that this could handle a lot more than what I've experienced. Yeah, pretty decent. Still probably a little bit too close to the clutch. But I will say the shifter definitely takes a second to get used to, and like the clutch actuation, everything is very interesting on this truck. It's not like super intuitive, I will say that. So this actually kind of makes the truck exciting, because it's like one of those things where it's like a badge of honor once you kind of get used to being able to handle this. And plus, there's not a lot of manual Tacomas out there. I will say, I don't think this feels, the gearing's kind of interesting. I thought that this might feel faster than the Tacoma with the automatic, because that 6-speed automatic is not the most modern transmission, and so it's not the quickest with the gear shifts and everything. But it seems like this has pretty long gearing, and so it doesn't really feel, if they feel pretty similar in terms of the acceleration. I wouldn't say that this feels any faster than the automatic. Get a couple blips here. Not a perfect rev match, but you know. Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm probably about to have a very controversial opinion here in a moment, but you know what? That's what it is. That's what the car review life is all about. So first off, exterior wise, I think this looks amazing with the green. You guys know I like bright flashy colors. This is a bright flashy color, so it's right up my alley. From an interior perspective, I think they do a great job with the TRD Pro. You know, considering the fact this truck's pretty old at this point, it's still a nice feeling interior, and I feel it looks cool, right? It has this cool sporty appearance to it. And then from a driving characteristic perspective, the TRD Pro drives fantastic. It's not like it drives like magically better than a regular Tacoma on road. The dampening does feel better when you go over big enough bumps, but like just driving down the street, you're not really going to notice a difference, right? It's all for show from a street perspective. But what I can say is, again, like over big enough bumps, you do feel a difference. Now, manual versus automatic, this is where things might get controversial. So I've been known to like typically recommend manuals over automatics because you get like this more engaging driving experience and all that, but I don't think I feel that way with this truck. The 3.5 liter V6 is not the most blippable engine. I'm sure you could, you know, get used to it to where, again, you could get the rev matches perfect and it would feel okay, but it's not a super blippable engine. It's not a sports car engine, right? That's not what it's about. So that the rev match downshifting on this that you do is, I don't know, doesn't feel great. And then the shifter, like I said, having the super long throws seems like that would be great for crawling, right? Having these really long throws. But when you're just driving around town, it's kind of obnoxious. And you don't get as much off-road tech with the manual versus the automatic. So I guess if you want to challenge, the manual is going to be there, and you know, take it on. But I would say the automatic's going to be able to outcrawl the manual because it just has more off-road tech, and then it's just more daily drivable. This isn't bad. Like the clutch, You know, the clutch isn't super heavy or anything like that, so it's not super cumbersome. But again, this just, it's not as user-friendly as the automatic, and so I'd actually recommend the automatic with the TRD Pro over the manual. I know that's controversial, but it's just my opinion. That's gonna sum things up for our video on this 2022 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro with the manual transmission. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Brent Brown Toyota here in Orem, Utah for giving me some time with this truck. Check out the inventory in the description down below. I'll see you guys.